Morning, everybody. Thanks for joining us today for the Stay Connected webinar. I'm Jan Handa. I'm the state coordinator for 21st Century Community Learning Centers, and I am pinch hitting, to use a baseball term, pinch hitting for Kim Larson today. We're very excited for today's topic, and just one second here. Got too many screens open here. Really excited for today to take a look at the 4-H Reading Connections resources. And we've got three presenters that are going to join us here. We've got Jackie, Steffen, Jennifer Hansen, and Sarah Roberts. And I'm going to let each of them introduce themselves to you, but please join me in welcoming them. And I will turn it over to you guys to take us away.
Awesome. Hello, everyone, and thank you so much for letting us be a part of your Stay Connected conversation today. We're really excited to share the 4-H Reading Connections program with you. The new resources are all together now. So I am Jackie Steffen. I'm an early childhood extension educator. And with me, I have Sarah Roberts, who is also an early childhood extension educator, and Jennifer Hansen, who is a 4-H youth development educator. So we all work for Nebraska Extension, and we all have roles that work with youth. So with that being said, our mission at Nebraska Extension is really straightforward. So we engage with Nebraskans wherever they are, connecting them with resources, with research, and with innovation from the University of Nebraska. So it's amazing that the three of us are able to engage with all of you on this virtual platform over the noon hour to share about this year's 4-H Reading Connection resources. So Nebraska Extension is unique because we're the only organization bringing the research and expertise from the university to every county in the state. So we are uniquely local, we're unbiased, we like to collaborate, and we're really responsive to the needs of all Nebraskans. And you might be thinking, how do you do that? So we are able to connect and impact more than 1.9 million Nebraskans because we're 360 professionals strong in all 93 counties across the state. So we're divided into 8 kind of priority areas. So with Jennifer being in 4-H, with Sarah and I being in early childhood, we also have colleagues that are in beef systems, food, nutrition, and health, and others. And these 8 areas allow us to be a trusted educational resource. So what we're going to do is just jump right into today's topic. So as we get started sharing about the 4-H Reading Connections program, this is fairly informal. So if you have any questions, feel free to stop us or interrupt us, or if you'd rather type in the chat box, you can do that as well. So with a show of hands or by using your reaction button, how many of you are familiar with the 4-H Reading Connections program? Anyone? All right, I see Jane's hand went up. All right. Well, I'm not going to spend a lot of time necessarily on the history, but I do want to let you know that this is a program that was really developed back in 2014. And what it is it's a partnership between the Collaborative Summer Library Program and Nebraska Extension. And so what started out as just a pilot program to help a few libraries in Northeast Nebraska has really kind of flourished and spread beyond Northeast Nebraska, so across our state, and then beyond our borders as well. So each year, the Collaborative Summer Library Program has a new theme. And like I mentioned earlier, this year's theme is All Together Now. And this theme focuses on topics such as kindness, unity, friendship, and diversity. So what Nebraska Extension does is it works to develop programming that ties directly to the current year's theme that targets school-age children and also children in the early childhood realm. So therefore, there's 2 different parts to the 4-H Reading Connections program. The first part is a hands-on engaging lesson plans that are developed specifically for school age. And then the second part is what's called STEM Imagination Guides, and those are developed for the early childhood setting. So we're going to share in detail about both of those two components today. As you can see by just looking at the different pictures on the screen, the 4-H Reading Connections resources can be used in a variety of different settings with a variety of different ages, and with they can be used in a variety of different ways as well. So there's not a one-size-fits-all approach. This program was designed to be very adaptable, not necessarily scripted or cookie cutter. So because of the adaptability of this program, implementation looks dramatically different. And really, that's the beautiful part about the 4-H Reading Connections program. So we encourage people to take the resources and use them however they see fit. So as you listen today, we want you to let your mind kind of wander and think creatively about how you might use these resources and what it might look like with the audience that you work with. So with that being said, Sarah is going to start with the early childhood component, the STEM reading connections portion.
All right. Good afternoon, everybody. So basically, we just wanted to kind of go over this year's guides with you all, and then we'll kind of give you an in-depth look at some of the guides. So that way you have an idea of what to expect if you would like to download them. But for the first part of this, I just want to tell you all the books that we chose for this year. So the cool thing about this program is every year we have done this, we've gotten together at the library and kind of gone through a whole slew of different books related to the theme for each year. And so we have the chance to go through and pick 8 different books. Now it's kind of a task. I mean, we actually go through, and I think this year we probably had a couple hundred that we went through. So these are the 8 that we chose. And so like Jackie said, with the guides, these are all very adaptable to how you would like to use them. So if these books don't really meet your needs, or some of them might be more appropriate for preschool, some of them might be more appropriate for younger children or older. So you can kind of pick and choose, but you can also use books that you already have. So for these, we picked Each Living Thing, which talks a little bit about like conservation and stewardship of the environment. Can Cat and Bird Be Friends is talking about, you know, differences in each other and kind of that friendship piece. Sorry, Really Sorry is just all about understanding others and kind of how they feel and how your attitude can kind of spread from one to another. My Mouth is a Volcano is all about listening, and in the book, the character likes to blurt out things. So kind of thinking about what that looks like and how children can figure out how to listen to others and also kind of hold their thoughts and things. Sweet People Are Everywhere is just all about all the different people that we have all around the world, and kindness that exists everywhere, not just in the United States, it's all over the world. The Monster Parade is all about emotions. Thank You, Amu. Amu also has a lot of sharing and friendship to it. And then I Am a Kindness Hero talks about helping and being helpful to others and how you can do that. If you want to, you can click on that QR code there, and that will take you right to our website, but we'll also put the website in the chat as well. So you don't have to worry about that right now, but those are the 8 books that we chose. So I think on the next slide is our actual, we're going to talk about pilot study. Okay. So basically what we do each year is we have a pilot study. And so before we launch all of our guides out to the public on our site, we like to have people that want to pilot these to kind of, so that way we can see how the lessons are going to work with each age group. And if there's any kind of suggestions or thoughts for people to share with us on that, it's super helpful. So that way we can kind of tweak things before we give it out to the public for everyone to use. So this year we had 26 sites that piloted our program. So we were super excited about that. And 13 of those sites actually gave us feedback, which is also really great. And so we give them the guides and kind of give them a little bit of information on how to use the guides and if they're not familiar with it. And then they kind of go through and they can pick and choose which one they would like to use and then fill out a survey for us. So that way we can get some suggestions and feedback. So some of the comments we got was, since our group was larger, we used a YouTube video version of the book being read. This helped everyone in the room see each page easily. So they can also talk about some of their adaptations that they do, which is also nice because we can then take those and share those with the people that we do trainings and workshops for with this program. So it does give us a little bit of more information and ideas to share with others, along with changes that we might want to make within the guides themselves. So, we also get things like, oh, no typos. I didn't need any additional clarification, something like that. So basically that's kind of the purpose of the pilot study, is just to give us a little bit of information if we need to change things and how we can make those as user-friendly as possible. All right. And then the next piece of this is we really want to, as early childhood educators, and if you're not an early childhood person, you may not be familiar with the early learning guidelines, but those are a set of trainings that all providers have to take. So there's 7 different domains. Each domain is 6 hours. Anyways, it's a lot of hours for them to have to take to continue with their certification and licensing for being a provider. But we really wanted to make sure that we emphasize the importance of the Nebraska Early Learning Guidelines and how our STEM Imagination Guides tie into that. So, you can kind of see here on the screen, those are the different domains. So there's creative arts, social emotional, approaches to learning, which really goes into detail about how children learn, how they think, and kind of the purpose of the early learning guidelines. So really, I like that one to be the beginning, but that's not always how people take it, but that's okay. So then there's also health and physical, language and literacy, math, and science. And so, of course, since this year is all about social emotional, then our guides are going to fit really, really well with that social emotional domain. But we also have all kinds of things such as creative arts, science, and math. Really, our guides can fit anywhere. But our goal is to make sure that we make that connection for providers so that way they know the value of the early learning guidelines and they continue to use that resource. Okay, so this is just our template and we can share this with you. This is pretty similar to last year's template. The first year that we did this, we had kind of a trifold brochure type thing, and we got a lot of feedback about it was kind of difficult to print. So we decided to go with more of a newsletter format, which is a lot easier to print out. It's just a front and back. And they all look pretty similar. So the only differences usually will be like the color scheme sometimes, of course, the book, and then some of the pictures, and of course the activities, but the format is generally the same for all of them. So on the front page, you'll see, it says STEM Imagination Guides at the top. Then we have our conversation starters in that little box right there that go right along with the book that we suggest. And so again, like I said, if you're using a different book, you can still tweak those conversation starters, but everything is there. So that way you don't have to come up with new things if you don't want to do that or don't know how to do that. But the conversation starters we like to include because we have a lot of different users of this. We have parents, we have grandparents, we have scout leaders, we have teachers, 4-H leaders, church preschools, different things. So there's a lot of a very wide variety of audiences that we have. So we wanted just to make sure that they understand that, this is how you can engage children in reading a storybook. So that's why we provided those. Then on the front page, we also have our STEM connection. And that is going to be the most detailed activity because they are the STEM Imagination Guides. So we have a STEM activity that goes along with it. And usually we have the supply list, we have how you do the activity. So there's steps to do that. And then typically we either have some interesting facts about, whatever the topic is, or we might have some other information that goes along with that activity at the bottom. So that's how the front page works. Then on the back, we have a nature activity, a creative arts activity, and an infant toddler activity. So those 3 activities will always be the same. We have changed it in the past. So we used to have a nature, creative arts, and a music and movement activity. But again, we got some feedback asking for some infant toddler specific activities. And so, being respectful of our feedback, we wanted to make sure that we honored that. So we did add an infant toddler specific activity for that. And then of course the background, which we talked a little bit about, and then all of our contact information and a QR code for the website. So all of the guides are going to look pretty similar to that format. All right, so we're gonna kind of go into detail about a couple of the guides, so that way maybe you'll hear about one that you want to try, and so then you can know which ones you want to go ahead and download. But you're certainly welcome to download all of them. So this one is the Each Living Thing, and like I said, this is all about environmental stewardship, conservation, and that kind of thing. So the one thing we did find with this particular book is that it is a little bit difficult to find for some reason. I'm not sure why. So when we did this, we were at the Norfolk Public Library and they had this one in their library, So you can check to see if your local library has this book. It is on Amazon. I think I just checked a week or so ago and it was on there, but sometimes you can't find it in print for some reason. So on the back page, and which I'll tell you about in just a second, but we do have some other book suggestions. So that way, if you can't find this book, there are other books that go along with this theme. So like I said, there's the conversation starters there. And then the STEM activity for this one is a bug hotel. So some of you might have created a bee hotel or something like that. But the bug hotel is pretty simple. And there's a couple different ways to do this. On this particular lesson, it suggests to use a toilet paper roll. And basically you would just have a toilet paper roll, fill it full of sticks. You can get some butcher paper or something like that, something that's biodegradable. And then you can put a piece of yarn on it and hang it from a tree or somewhere outside that you would, bugs would have access to it. Or you can also use like these two pictures here. The two bigger pictures, they actually used half of a water bottle. And so they cut a water bottle in half and used the bottom part and did the same thing. They just stuffed it full of sticks and leaves and things like that. And then I think punched a hole in it and hung it that way. There's also another way you can do this. And so I actually have these, like, I'm not really sure where they came from, but when I moved into my office, there was a lot of like random things in there. And so these were in there and they work perfectly. So they're kind of like PVC pipe, but they're paper, but they're really hard. And so we actually cut paper straws and put them down in there really tight. And so there's no glue or anything. So they're just packed down in there with a piece of yarn in there. And so that way insects can get in there as well. The one with the little PVC pipe thing, that is kind of geared more towards bees because the bees will get into those straws and lay their eggs and they can seal it off. Whereas the other ones will attract other types of beetles. It might attract spiders, whatever. So there's a lot of different things that it might attract with those, but there's a lot of different ways to do that. Then on the back, we have a couple of activities. The nature activity is a leave no trace. And this one, you can be creative with it. There's not a set kind of direction for it, but it's going to the website, Leave No Trace. And there's like checklists, there's a lot of games and stuff and resources on the website, but basically helping children to understand how important it is that we don't, if you're outside camping or if you're outside having a picnic or doing something like that, that you make sure to leave no trace. So you pick up all the things that you brought in, pack in, pack out, that sort of thing. So that's the nature activity. The creative arts is all about a nature journal, and that's what these two pictures here are. And so this was actually done at a summer camp, nature camp that I did last year. So this group of kids was, they were aged 3 and 4. So these are littles, and they were outside observing our pollinator garden. And so they had their nature journal, and all I did was take computer paper, fold it in half and staple it, and they could draw whatever they want in it. They had pencils, markers, and everything like that. And so they could draw what they were observing outside. So there's a lot of different ways that you can do that as well. If you wanted to make a fancy nature journal, you can do that. I've seen people where they take paper lunch sacks, and they fold those in half and staple them so the kids can write in them, but they can also collect things in the little pockets there. So that's another way to do that also. Then the infant toddler activity is a nature I Spy. So you can tell I like nature and science and all those things. So that's why this guide is one of the ones that I did. So that's why that is represented there. And then at the bottom part, those are where I put some extra book suggestions for you if you're unable to find the main story. And then of course the background and the About Us section. So that's kind of a little bit of overview about each living thing. So yeah, I think it's Jackie's turn maybe.
All right, and so I just wanted to share just an overview of one more guide. So this one's Thank You, Amu. And this is a story about Amu, who's looking really forward to having a pot of thick red stew for her evening supper. So she has it on her stove and it's simmering, and the scent, it wafts out her outer door, down the hall, out the window, and it keeps on bringing other people from the community to her door, and they're knocking on her door and they're like, what is that smell? And she shares that it's the thick red stew. And would you like some? And so she's sharing her thick red stew with all these different community members who stop throughout the day. And as the sun goes down, it's finally time for Amu to have her evening supper that she's looking forward to. And as she opens the pot, it's all gone. And so she's feeling blue and sad. And suddenly she hears that knock on the door again. When she goes, she sees all these individuals out in front of her door that have stopped earlier, and she's very sad and says, I don't have anything left to share with you. And they said, don't worry, because we're not here to receive, we're here to give. And so they have a feast together. And so this story really, the friendship and generosity really just pour out from it. And the story has so many different ways that you can have children be engaged, utilizing those conversation starters, having them doing the knocking at the door, having them repeat some of the key phrases as well. And so the guide is similar to like what Sarah had mentioned. There is a song that's included that's stir, stir, stir the stew, and it can be used to activate prior knowledge. There's a creative arts activity where children use a variety of different art supplies to make their own large pot of collaborative stew together. And so it's a project that they can work on over a large period of time. And then the STEM activity, it incorporates data analysis and recording reactions to different scents. And then the nature activity is about a gratitude walk. So when I use this particular lesson in a library setting for a story hour, we also put in Play-Doh. So we had them create different things that they would take to Amu's if they were going there for supper, something they'd like to share. And then I also found air fresheners at Dollar General that worked a little bit better than some of the scent jars. And so I guess I'm just trying to say that as you do this or utilize these lessons, there's going to be different things that come up that you might want to incorporate and change. And so there's definitely a couple of things that I changed when I taught this lesson more than one time. Kind of wrapping up the STEM Imagination Guides piece is we also have infant and toddler board book suggestions for younger ones. Maybe for those children who do not have the attention span for the longer stories. The books still coordinate with the theme altogether now, and they can go with any of the activities that are in any of the guides. Also, for you to know, all of our guides have been translated to Spanish. And then any of the suggested books that you saw on the screen, if they're not available in Spanish, we have a team member who has done a recorded reading of the story in Spanish as well. So that is kind of a fast and furious overview of the early childhood component. I'm just going to pause for a second. Are there any questions that you have before we move on to kind of the kindergarten through sixth grade resources? All right, then I'm going to pass it on to Jennifer.
Perfect. Okay. So our lessons, again, follow that collaborative summer reading theme, and our team really focused on teamwork, the teamwork aspect of that theme. So again, this year, our lessons are around the 4 H's of the 4-H pledge. So head. Every time we do this, that T drops off and we get here at the top, but whatever. Head lesson, we're going to talk about knowing and naming our emotions, because we know for young people that is something, but we want to do that because if they can name their emotion, they're better able to deal with whatever it is they're feeling. They're going to find common ground in teams, so they're going to figure out how they're the same as their, not just the differences, which is what we often focus on when it comes to working with others. And then they're going to put those pieces together. And we'll talk more about this lesson when I walk through the guide. So we'll come back to that. But in the heart lesson, it's a collaborative art project that's called I Am Enough. There's the potential to make a group garden mural if you have a bulletin board in your facility that you can use. And so they basically they all make flowers and then write something about themselves. And so you have this beautiful mural of flowers. There's a take-home art piece that looks very similar to what is posted here, and that's one that was actually made. For the hands lesson, if you were with us back in the very beginning, 2018-ish, I think, on one of those first years, we did a Rube Goldberg lesson. So this lesson is similar to that, but has a little different twist. So they're going to learn about simple and complex machines. They're going to they have the potential to create a gumball machine or a marshmallow catapult. Important thing to note, the gumball machine takes quite a while to work through. That was actually the focus of this lesson. And then when we piloted them with ourselves, it took me a really long time to make my gumball machine. And so we're like, okay, we need something that can easily be done in a shorter time period. But if you have kids coming to after school and they're there quite often, or if they're coming to a library program multiple times, it's a good activity. It just takes quite a while because they have to cut all their little pieces of cardboard. And I should have grabbed that. That's actually in the other room. So these are made out of cardboard. So all those boxes that books get shipped in, all of that type of thing, or you could use like really heavy cardstock, but we do recommend the cardboard. They have to cut those and then they have to glue them. We did use like a cool glue gun just because that's a little faster than waiting for Elmer's glue to dry. It's really cool when it's done and it works, which is the really fun component of this. But it does take quite a bit of time. So I want to be very clear on that, that if you are time crunched, you're going to want to do the marshmallow catapult, which is equally fun. It just isn't a gumball machine. So that's the one disappointment on that. In our health lesson, they are making a friendship apple salad. They're going to talk about the characteristics of a good friend. They're going to talk about the characteristics of apples. And so that's kind of how that relates back. There's an apple STEM activity about staying strong and not turning brown. So that's the science component about oxidation in apples and what works best. And then there's also the art component of that lesson where they can. Lesson has a lot of components that if you're looking for a multiple around concept, that one would work really, really well for you. Jackie, if you will advance, please. So our lesson overview, our lessons, if you're familiar with them a lot and how they're laid out. So the title is on the top. On the left-hand side is going to talk about your grade level. Especially if you can tie back to a career in your local community, that's awesome. Then the first people listed will be your lesson authors. So for this lesson, I worked on this lesson with Jordan Wilbur, who's in the Buffalo County office. And then our other team members also can answer questions. But if you have questions specific to a lesson, go to those lesson authors first, because they're going to be might be. We talk about the 4-H pledge, the learning objectives. It gives you the complete supply list for the whole lesson, as well as kind of how to prepare. And then the follow-up page after that talks about how you can find more information. They have been peer reviewed when they were developed, kind of that disclaimer piece, but it talks about continued learning. So if you have young people that are participating in your event that are enrolled in the traditional 4-H program and are looking for a way to continue their learning and maybe take it to your local county fairs, that's where this piece comes in. So these are actually fair projects that I pulled from the state fair book for this lesson, and each lesson has projects for fair. And then it talks about where did we get these resources for, because you'll see some of these you're going to look at and be like, well, I've seen something similar. So that will give you that example. And then if we can advance, Jackie, please. Perfect. Then it's going to have a physical activity component, because we know, depending on your age group, they may be extra wiggly or maybe not very wiggly, depending on the time of day. So there's a physical activity. So for this lesson, it's the ultimate rock, paper, scissors game. So basically, you stand up, you play rock, paper, scissors. Whoever the winner is then joins the team of the person that just beat them. And then they keep going until at the end, you are all on the same team because you're with whoever the ultimate winner of rock, paper, scissors is. Super low resources needed for that one. Space is the biggest thing. And the kids have a ball with it, because you can also talk about when you're being a good team member, you're going to cheer on your team member and that type of thing. Then you will choose a book. And for this lesson, there are 3 different books that we suggested. Ricky, the Rock That Can't Roll. I really liked that one because it with the rock, paper, scissors. Also, it's about teamwork because they want to help Ricky roll. And then some other ones were just books about emotions. So then there's questions you can ask. The first activity for this is actually letting your head roll charades. And this came from a 4-H curriculum called Health Rocks. But in it, they're going to learn what emotions might look like, because if these are kindergartners, they're not going to understand. Like when you say, I'm confused, they might be like, I don't know what that word means. But if you can show them the picture of these emojis, which on the side here, you'll see it looks like a bookmark, because this is part of the collaborative summer reading program. These are actually bookmarks that you can print out and pass out, and they look great in black and white, so you don't have to worry about printing in color. But it's a take-home piece that they each youth can have one of these bookmarks, so they can kind of look at that and be like, oh, today I'm feeling this way. And I know my 3-year-old in her preschool classroom, they have a sign next to the door about how are you feeling today, and it shows a picture of a face on that kind of on that scale. So I feel like this is a good tie with kind of what Sarah and Jackie have been doing. But then with this, basically there's cards that have the emoji blown up, and they draw them out, and then we ask them to act them out. So you can do that as a large group, as a small group, but it gives you the opportunity to show what those emotions might be. You can also talk about that some emotions might look similar. So maybe what my face is telling you is that I'm really upset, but maybe, or angry would be the word on here, but really I'm not angry, I'm confused. So we also can talk about that sometimes emotions may look similar, but it's important that if you're not sure what someone's face is telling you about their emotions, to ask the question. So the next activity on the next slide then is called Finding Common Ground. And basically you need an area where they can get up and move around. And then you're going to tell them to get into groups of whatever number you pick. And then you're going to tell them you need to get into groups of 3 of people that are your same age, or people, or a group of 4 people that are wearing the color red. And you kind of go through that. And the first couple rounds, definitely make sure everyone's part of those groups, but then you can also talk about kind of paring it down. But it brings that common ground, because it shows them that we're probably more alike than we are different. Most youth, if you say, get in a group with someone that likes chocolate ice cream, there's probably going to be quite a few people that maybe like chocolate ice cream. So these are just some prompts. You do not have to use these, but those are some ones we put together. And then the final activity in this lesson is about putting the pieces together. And it's a color puzzle that just kind of uses those emojis again. And it talks about how all of those feelings fit together, not only inside of us, but you may have all of those feelings when working with others on a team. And so it's important to work together and to understand our emotions. It's really a nice way to kind of tie this lesson together. And the last slide around that is just our reflect, apply, the evaluation questions that are just a thumbs up, thumbs down, smiley face, frowny face. Very similar to what we've done in the past. Next slide, please. So this is just a close-up of that bookmark piece. And then, like I said, the charade cards are just basically the postcard size of these same faces. When we did test this, we changed some of the words we were using because they were words that maybe a kindergartner wouldn't understand. So we tried to use emotional words that they would know. For the next slide then, I believe this is suggested books for each of the lessons, which this got sent out, I know, to our library systems in January. These are the books for the head lesson. The next slide will be the one for the heart lesson. And we tried to do screen grabs of those covers because sometimes you're a little more familiar with that. And then the hands lesson. These are so much fun. These Izzy Gizmo ones are fun. I really like those books. And then the final one for our health lesson are all about the apples and friendship salad and that type of thing. And then our next slide, please. Yes, now it's back to Jackie. So before I move on, are there any questions kind of about the outline of what those lessons look like? Otherwise, we'll let Jackie and Sarah wrap us up. Okay.
All right, so you might be wondering, this all sounds great. I know Jennifer put the web address in the chat box, and what I want to do is just do a really brief website tour. So just know that all of these resources are at no cost, and so you're able to download and have access to them at any time. So we have a really simple website. We do have a couple of trainings coming up if you're interested in encouraging others to participate. But on the first part, you can see the early childhood components. Click on a red button. What it will do is it will take you to another page. You simply click on the guide you're interested in downloading, answer a couple of questions. You can download and save them on your computer and have access to them. When you get into this as well, you'll have access to downloading them in English and in Spanish, like I mentioned a little bit earlier. That's the first component of the 4-H Reading Connections. You go down a little bit farther, and then you also see the kind of school age component. And so it's right here. It talks about Jennifer's 4 lessons that go right along with the 4-H pledge: the head, the heart, the hands, and the health. Similar, you click on the red button. There's a couple of questions to answer, and then you'll have access to all of those great resources. The other thing I wanted to point out is towards the middle of this page, we do have all of our resources archived. So you know that the resources tie directly with the current collaborative summer reading theme. But good books are good books being read any time of the year. And so last year's theme was on oceans. The year before was on animals and animal habitats. And then we also have a set that's on fairy tales as well. So all of those resources are available to you. So I look at this as kind of being like a vault of awesome resources that are able to connect language and STEM and everything all together. So that's what the website looks like.
Jackie, can I interrupt you for 1 second? Just because this is a difference. So when you go to download the early childhood STEM imagination guides, you get to pick which ones you want. When you go to download the 4-H Reading Connections ones, it's one giant PDF. So you're going to, if you just want the heart lesson, you're still going to get all the other lessons. You'll just have to scroll through and find what you want. But I don't want you to be like, I didn't pick anything. There's a little difference there. And we also don't have as many archived just because of how we used to send these out and share them. Jackie and Sarah were farther ahead of us in that game than we were on the 4-H side. So I think there's probably only about 1 year's worth of resources here. Now, if you're really interested, reach out to me. I have all of the resources back to 2014. Just know we have learned a lot in that time period. So they have come a long way since we started this. Thanks, Jackie.
Yeah, not a problem. Thank you. And so with that kind of brings us, we're a little bit over time, so we apologize for that, but brings us to the end of our presentation on the 4-H STEM Reading Connections program. We would entertain any questions that you might have. We also have a QR code up here. We're always trying to get feedback. So if you are inclined to want to give us some feedback on the presentation today, we would appreciate that simply by scanning the QR code. Otherwise, I put a link in the chat box as well. Otherwise, what questions can we answer? Or do you have any ideas that are stirring in your mind in regards to how you might implement the program in your setting?
We have a quiet group today, but these are recorded and posted up on the StayConnected website. And we have a lot of people that are just not available at this particular time, but they will tune in. So I want to just kind of jump in. I took lots of notes here. You guys have so many wonderful resources here. And I just want to let people know that in addition to the recording, we'll post this PowerPoint slide up on that website and your contact information so that they can get a hold of you as needed. I just think 4-H Extension is such a fantastic partner and resource here in Nebraska because you are all across the state in all 93 counties. And just speaking for the 21st Century Program, I know that 4-H Extension is the #1 most often utilized partner in our program. So we just thank you so much for spending the time to come and share with us today. We really appreciate it. I didn't mention at the start, but these StayConnected webinars are a partnership between 4-H Extension, the Beyond School Bells statewide after school network, and the 21st Century Community Learning Centers. And so this series is one of those ways that we partner. And then I'm going to put this in the chat. Another way is we partner on a statewide after-school conference. And so it is in Omaha this fall, September 22nd. And right now we are looking for partners, entities that would like to propose a breakout session, or if you would like to have what we call a walk and talk table, exhibitor table. So the link is in the chat, and we'd encourage you to fill that out if that applies to you. The next time we come together will be on April 20th for the next Stay Connected. And the topic is implementing a board game club. Brian Welch is going to be leading that. Is there anything else you want to add about that, Brian? Or
no, just I know I presented to Get Connected about it, and if you weren't able to make that session, this will be similar, just talking about how to do it in all levels of education, kindergarten through high school. So
we're looking forward to that in a couple of weeks. So with that, we will close this out. I really appreciate your time, and those of you who listened either in person or virtually after the fact. So have a great day.